Sometimes love doesn't knock. It walks right in with its own key and changes everything you thought you knew about home. Alex had been dreaming about this moment for months. Finally, his own place. No more sharing a bathroom with 3 roommates. No more fighting over who ate the last slice of pizza. Just him, his laptop, and complete freedom. The apartment wasn't much to look at. A small 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor of an old house that had been split into 4 separate units. The walls were thin, the kitchen was tiny, and the shower took forever to heat up. But it was his, and that made all the difference. His mom had helped him move in 3 weeks ago, fussing over every detail. She'd brought cleaning supplies, a plant she swore would make the place feel homier, and enough frozen meals to last a month. His dad had installed new locks on the door, muttering about safety in the city. They meant well, but Alex was glad. When they finally left and he could just sit in his own space without anyone telling him what to do. The job at the marketing company wasn't exactly his dream career, but it paid the bills and gave him health insurance. Most days he worked until 6, came home to his quiet apartment and spent evenings catching up on shows he'd missed while living with roommates who controlled the TV remote. Life had settled into a comfortable routine. Wake up at 7, grab coffee from the shop downstairs, work all day, come home, heat up dinner, and repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful. Alex had always been someone who preferred quiet over chaos. The landlord, Mrs. Kim, was a sweet older woman who lived in the basement apartment. She'd inherited the building from her late husband and rented out the other units to help pay for maintenance. When Alex first toured the place, she'd mentioned that the previous tenant had left suddenly for a job opportunity, but she didn't go into details. Alex didn't ask. He was just happy to find something affordable in his price range. That Friday, evening started like any other. Alex had stayed late at the office to finish a presentation for Monday's client meeting. His boss had a habit of dropping last-minute projects on people's desks right before weekends, and Alex hadn't figured out how to say no yet. By the time he got home, it was already dark outside. He'd grabbed Chinese takeout on the walk back, the same order he always got, beef and broccoli with fried rice. Nothing fancy, but it was filling and cheap. The apartment felt extra quiet that evening. Even the usual sounds from upstairs were missing. His neighbor, who worked night shifts, must have already left for work. Alex spread his dinner out on the small table by the window and opened his laptop. The presentation still needed work, and he wanted to finish it before the weekend really started. He'd just taken his first bite when he heard footsteps on the stairs outside. The building was old, and every step creaked. Alex had gotten used to the sounds of his neighbors coming and going. The college student upstairs usually got home around this time. The couple next door often had late dinners, but these footsteps stopped right outside his door. Alex paused, chopsticks halfway to his mouth. He heard the jingle of keys, the kind of sound that happens when someone's searching through a key ring in the dark, probably his neighbor having trouble with their lock again. The hallway light had been broken for weeks, and Mrs. Kim kept saying she'd get it fixed. Then he heard something that made his stomach drop, the unmistakable sound of a key sliding into his lock. His lock. The lock his father had just changed 3 weeks ago. Before Alex could move, before he could even process what was happening, his door swung open. The security chain wasn't on because he'd been expecting a package delivery earlier and forgot to put it back up. Now he was sitting there completely exposed, watching a complete stranger walk into his apartment like she owned the place. The woman looked about his age, maybe a little older. She had shoulder-length brown hair that looked like she'd been running her hands through it all day, and she wore a professional outfit that suggested she'd just come from an office job. She moved with the kind of confidence that comes from routine, dropping her purse on the counter next to his kitchen sink and hanging her keys on the little hook by the door. For a moment, neither of them moved. Alex sat frozen at his table, a piece of broccoli still stuck on his chopsticks. The woman stood by his counter, one hand still reaching toward where she'd hung her keys. The only sound was the hum of his refrigerator and the distant noise of traffic outside. She looked around, the apartment slowly taking in the changes. Alex's furniture was completely different from whatever had been there before. His couch was blue instead of whatever color the previous tenant had chosen. His TV was smaller and sitting on a different wall. His books were scattered on shelves, where someone else's belongings used to be. "You're not Jake," she said finally, and her voice carried a mix of confusion and resignation, like this wasn't the first time her day had taken an unexpected turn. Alex set down his chopsticks carefully, trying to buy himself time to think. His brain was struggling to catch up with the situation. A strange woman had just walked into his apartment using a key that shouldn't exist. She clearly expected to find someone named Jake, but Jake wasn't here. Jake had never been here, at least not since Alex moved in. "No," Alex managed to say, his voice coming out rougher than usual. "I'm Alex. This is my apartment." The woman's shoulders dropped slightly, and for the first time since she'd walked in, she looked uncertain. She glanced around again, this time seeing the space through different eyes. This wasn't the home she remembered. These weren't the belongings she expected to see. The person sitting at the table wasn't the person she'd come to find. "I think," she said slowly, "we might have a problem." The woman slowly walked over to Alex's couch and sat down heavily, like someone who'd just realized their day was about to get much more complicated. She ran her hands through her hair and let out a long breath. "My name is Luna," she said, looking directly at Alex for the first time since she'd walked in. "And I think I owe you an explanation." Alex pushed his takeout container to the side, his appetite completely gone. This was definitely not how he'd planned to spend his Friday evening. "That would be helpful," he said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his heart was still racing. Luna reached into her purse and pulled out a folder of papers. "I've been subletting this apartment from Jake for the past 8 months. He's the guy who lived here before you moved in. I have a contract and everything." She spread the documents across Alex's coffee table. "I pay him $600 every month, and he gives Mrs. Kim the full rent." Alex stared at the papers. They looked official enough, with signatures and dates and all the legal language that made his eyes glaze over. But something didn't add up. "If you've been living here for 8 months, where have you been for the past 3 weeks?" "I've been here every single day." "Work trip," Luna said, shaking her head like she couldn't believe her own bad luck. "My design company sent me to handle a project in another state. I've been bouncing between hotels and client offices for a month. I just got back into town this morning." She pulled out her phone and showed Alex a long chain of text messages. "Look, here's my conversation with Jake from 2 weeks ago. He told me everything was fine with the apartment and that I should just come back whenever I was ready." Alex scrolled through the messages. Jake's responses were short and vague, mostly just, "Yeah, no problem," and "Everything's cool." There was no mention of him moving out or of someone new moving in. No mention of Alex at all. "So Jake just disappeared?" Alex asked, handing the phone back. "Apparently." Luna's voice was getting more frustrated. "He got some job offer in Seattle and packed up everything overnight. Mrs. Kim called me this morning to tell me he'd moved out, but she said the apartment was empty and available for rent again. She had no idea I was supposed to be living here, too." Alex felt a headache starting behind his eyes. This was exactly the kind of complicated situation he'd been trying to avoid by living alone. "Did you try calling Jake?" His phone goes straight to voicemail. His email bounced back. It's like he just vanished into thin air. Luna stood up and started pacing around the small living room. "I have nowhere else to go, Alex. My old lease ended when I started subletting from Jake. My stuff is all in storage. I literally have 2 suitcases in my car and that's it." Alex looked at this stranger who was suddenly his biggest problem. Luna seemed genuine enough. She wasn't acting crazy or demanding. She was just someone who'd gotten screwed over by a situation completely outside her control, just like he was. "What did Mrs. Kim say when you showed her the subletting agreement?" Alex asked. She felt terrible. She had no idea Jake was subletting to anyone. Apparently he told her he just needed the place to himself for work reasons. Luna stopped pacing and looked at Alex. "She's downstairs right now trying to figure out what to do. She said she'd never had anything like this happen before." Alex's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Kim. "Can you come downstairs? We need to talk." About the apartment situation. I guess that's our cue, Alex said, standing up. This whole thing was starting to feel surreal. 3 hours ago, his biggest worry was finishing a work presentation. Now he was dealing with landlord disputes and mysterious disappearing tenants. They walked down to Mrs. Kim's apartment together, the silence between them awkward but not hostile. Luna seemed lost in thought, probably trying to figure out where she was going to sleep tonight. Alex was running through worst-case scenarios in his head. Would he have to move out? Would Mrs. Kim kick them both out? Could Luna take him to court over this? Mrs. Kim opened her door before they could knock. She looked flustered, her usually neat hair a bit messy, and her glasses slightly crooked. "Oh, good. You're both here. Please, sit down. I've been making phone calls all evening trying to sort this out." Her apartment was the exact opposite of Alex's minimalist setup. Every surface was covered with family photos, plants, and little decorative objects collected over decades. It felt warm and lived in, like a real home instead of just a place to sleep. "I spoke with my lawyer," Mrs. Kim began, settling into her favorite armchair. "Both of your agreements are legally valid. Alex, your lease is properly signed and filed. Luna, your subletting contract is legitimate too, even though I never approved it." She took off her glasses and cleaned them nervously. "The problem is Jake. He had no legal right to sublet the apartment without my permission. But since he did it, and since you've been paying rent in good faith for 8 months, you have tenant rights too." Alex felt his stomach sink. "So what does that mean?" "It means we have 2 tenants for 1 apartment and no easy legal way to fix it." Mrs. Kim put her glasses back on and looked between them. "I can't just kick either of you out without going through the courts, and that could take months." Luna leaned forward in her chair. "Mrs. Kim, I don't want to cause problems. If there was somewhere else I could go, I would. But I literally have nowhere. My job requires me to travel constantly, so I never bothered making close friends in the city. My family lives across the country. I don't have backup options." Alex surprised himself by feeling sorry for her. Luna was clearly having the worst day imaginable, and none of it was her fault. Jake had screwed them both over, and now they were stuck dealing with the consequences. "What if we shared the apartment temporarily?" The words came out of Alex's mouth before he'd really thought them through. "Just until Luna can find somewhere else to live. We could split the rent based on space usage or something." Mrs. Kim's eyebrows went up. Luna stared at Alex like he'd just offered to let her borrow his car. "Are you serious?" Luna asked. Alex wasn't sure if he was serious, or if he was just tired of thinking about complicated legal battles. "It's better than lawyers and court dates, and you seem normal enough. You're not asking me to move out or demanding I give you the apartment, you're just stuck." Mrs. Kim was nodding slowly. "That could work as a temporary solution. Luna could use the living room and we could adjust the rent fairly, but you'd both have to agree to ground rules and a timeline for Luna to find her own place." Luna looked like she might cry from relief. "I would pay whatever's fair. I'm clean, quiet, and I work long hours anyway. You'd barely know I was there." Alex was already starting to wonder if he'd lost his mind, but something about the whole situation felt right. Maybe it was because Luna seemed genuinely grateful instead of entitled. Maybe it was because he'd been feeling lonely in the apartment without quite admitting it to himself. Or maybe he just wanted to stick it to Jake, wherever he was, by making sure his abandoned mess didn't ruin 2 people's lives. "Okay," Alex said. "Let's try it." 2 weeks passed faster than Alex had expected. Living with Luna turned out to be surprisingly easy. She kept her promise about being clean and quiet. Her belongings stayed neatly organized in the living room corner, and she'd hung a decorative room divider to give herself some privacy. The arrangement felt temporary but comfortable. Luna had a routine that meshed well with Alex's schedule. She left for work 30 minutes before he did, always making sure the coffee pot was ready for him. She came home around the same time he did, but usually spent her evenings working on freelance projects or talking quietly on the phone with clients. They'd developed an unspoken system for sharing the bathroom and kitchen that worked without any awkward conversations. The best part was having someone to talk to in the evenings. Alex hadn't realized how much he'd missed casual conversation until Luna started sharing stories about her graphic design work over dinner. She had a way of describing difficult clients that made him laugh, and she was genuinely interested when he complained about his marketing presentations. It felt like having a friend who happened to live on his couch. Luna had been apartment hunting every weekend, but the rental market was brutal. Everything decent was either too expensive or already taken by the time she could schedule a viewing. She'd started talking about looking in neighborhoods further from downtown, places that would add an hour to her commute, but might be more affordable. That Thursday had been particularly rough for Luna. Alex could tell something was wrong the moment she walked through the door. Instead of her usual cheerful greeting, she just dropped her bag by the door and slumped against the wall. "Bad day?" Alex asked, looking up from his laptop. "The worst," Luna said, rubbing her temples. "Remember that big client I've been working with for 3 months? The restaurant chain that was going to redesign all their marketing materials?" Alex nodded. Luna had been excited about that project for weeks. It was the kind of job that could lead to steady long-term work. They decided to go with someone else. After I'd already finished half the work and presented 3 different concepts, they said they wanted to go in a different direction. Luna made air quotes with her fingers, her frustration obvious. "Which means they probably found someone cheaper." "That sucks," Alex said, and he meant it. He'd watched Luna work late into the night on those designs. They'd looked professional and creative, exactly what a restaurant chain would need. And that's not even the worst part. My boss scheduled back-to-back client meetings tomorrow, including 2 new pitches and a project review. I'm going to be running around the city all day trying to save other accounts while pretending I'm not stressed about losing such a big client. Luna kicked off her work shoes and headed toward the bathroom. "I'm going to take a shower and try to forget this day ever happened." Alex felt bad for her. Luna had been nothing but considerate since she'd moved in, and now she was dealing with work stress on top of the housing situation. He decided to order pizza from the place they'd both mentioned liking and surprise her with dinner when she got out of the shower. 20 minutes later, Alex heard the bathroom door open. He was still on the phone with the pizza place, trying to remember if Luna liked mushrooms or if that was something she'd said she was allergic to. The conversation was taking longer than expected because they'd put him on hold twice. Luna appeared around the corner wearing her usual after-work outfit, comfortable clothes that looked like they'd been chosen for maximum relaxation rather than style. She looked much more relaxed than she had when she'd walked in, and Alex gave her a thumbs up to indicate he was ordering food for both of them. But then Luna realized she'd forgotten to grab her phone charger from her bag, which was still sitting by the front door. Her phone had died during her commute home, and she wanted to plug it in before it became a problem for tomorrow's busy schedule. Alex was still on hold, pacing around the apartment with his phone pressed to his ear, when Luna walked back toward the living room area. She'd been moving quickly, focused on getting her charger and settling in for the evening, when she suddenly noticed Alex staring at her with a very strange expression. That's when Luna realized what had happened. In her tired, stressed state, she'd made a mistake that seemed impossible to explain. Instead of changing into her comfortable clothes like she'd thought, she'd only changed halfway. She was standing in the middle of the living room wearing her work blouse and her comfortable pants, but somehow her skirt was draped over her arm instead of being properly put away. The mix-up was completely innocent, but looked absolutely ridiculous. Luna had been so distracted by her terrible day and so eager to get comfortable that she'd gotten confused about which clothes she was taking off and which ones she was putting on. Now Alex was seeing her in what looked like a very awkward state of undress, even though she was actually wearing more clothes than usual. For a moment, neither of them moved. Alex was still holding his phone, the pizza place probably still playing hold music in his ear. Luna was standing there with her work skirt draped over one arm, looking like she'd been caught in the middle of something much more intentional than a simple wardrobe malfunction. The whole situation was so absurd, so perfectly timed to create maximum embarrassment, that Luna did the only thing her brain could think of in that moment. She winked. It wasn't a flirty wink or a suggestive gesture. It was the kind of nervous reaction that happens when your social filter completely shuts down and your body does something random to fill the awkward silence, like laughing at a funeral or waving at someone who wasn't actually waving at you. The wink seemed to break whatever spell had frozen them both in place. Alex started laughing first, a surprised laugh that sounded like he couldn't believe what was happening. Luna joined in a second later, laughing at her own ridiculous mistake and Alex's expression and the pure absurdity of their temporary living situation, creating yet another awkward moment. "I thought I was putting on comfortable clothes," Luna managed to say between laughs. "I don't know how I managed to take off my skirt and then carry it around like a purse." "I was trying to ask about pizza toppings," Alex said, finally hanging up on the pizza place. "I think I just ordered 6 large pizzas by accident because I kept pressing buttons while I was confused." They both started laughing harder. The stress of Luna's terrible day, the weird tension of sharing space with someone who was technically still a stranger, and the completely innocent but embarrassing mix-up combined into the kind of laughter that feels like it might never stop. "This is definitely going on the list of strangest things that have happened since I moved in here," Alex said, wiping tears from his eyes. "Right after mysterious woman appears with key to apartment," Luna agreed, finally hanging her skirt, properly in her designated closet area. "At least this one has a logical explanation," Alex said. "Even if the explanation is that we're both apparently losing our minds from this weird living situation." Luna grabbed her phone charger and plugged her phone into the wall. "You know what? After the day I've had, accidentally confusing my clothes and making you laugh is probably the best thing that's happened to me all week." Alex realized she was right. Despite the awkwardness, despite the mix-up, despite everything, they were both laughing together instead of being embarrassed or uncomfortable. There was something refreshing about being able to laugh at a weird situation instead of overanalyzing it. "Should I call the pizza place back?" Alex asked. "Definitely. But maybe this time we can figure out the toppings without any wardrobe malfunctions," Luna said with another laugh. As Alex redialed the pizza place, he found himself thinking that their temporary roommate situation was turning out to be much more interesting than he'd expected. Luna wasn't just a nice person who happened to be staying on his couch. She was someone who could make him laugh even when everything went wrong, and that felt like something worth keeping around. The wink had become their inside joke. Whenever one of them did something clumsy or awkward, the other would give an exaggerated wink and they'd both start laughing. It was silly, but it had turned an embarrassing moment into something that brought them closer as friends. Life settled into an even more comfortable routine after that. Luna had stopped being so careful about taking up space in the apartment. She'd started cooking dinner for both of them sometimes, and Alex found himself looking forward to her stories about difficult clients and creative projects. They'd begun watching movies together on weekends, debating about plot holes and arguing over which actor was better in different roles. But their peaceful bubble was about to burst in a way neither of them expected. It started on a Tuesday morning, when Alex's coworker Ryan saw Luna leaving the apartment building. Alex had mentioned to a few people at work that his housing situation had gotten complicated, but he'd never gone into details. He just said something vague about roommate issues that were getting sorted out. Ryan had stopped by to drop off some files Alex needed for a morning meeting. He was walking up to the building entrance just as Luna was leaving for work. She was dressed professionally, carrying her design portfolio, and she gave Ryan a friendly wave since she'd seen him talking to Alex before. Ryan watched her get into her car and drive away, then came upstairs with a knowing grin on his face. "Dude, you've been holding out on us," he said the moment Alex opened the door. "What are you talking about?" Alex asked, still half asleep and focused on getting ready for work. "The girl who just left. She's gorgeous. How long have you been seeing her?" Ryan pushed past Alex into the apartment, looking around like he was searching for evidence. Alex felt his stomach drop. This was exactly the kind of misunderstanding he'd been worried about. "It's not like that, Ryan. She's just staying here temporarily while she looks for her own place. It's a long story involving subletting and legal complications." But Ryan wasn't buying it. He pointed to Luna's neatly organized corner of the living room, her coffee mug still sitting by the sink, her jacket hanging on the back of a chair. "Come on, Alex, she's clearly living here. And the way she waved at me? She knows who I am. You've been talking about us at work." "Because we're friends," Alex said, getting more frustrated. People can be friends, Ryan. Not everything is about dating. Sure, whatever you say, Ryan said with a wink that had nothing in common with the innocent wink Luna had given Alex. But you're glowing, man. You seem happier than you've been since I've known you. If she's just a friend, she's having a pretty good effect on you. By lunchtime, Ryan had told 3 other people about Alex's mysterious girlfriend. By the end of the day, half the office was asking Alex when he was going to bring her to the company happy hour. Alex tried to correct the story, but every explanation just made people more convinced he was trying to keep his relationship secret. It's sweet that you're being protective of her, his supervisor Tony said during their weekly check-in meeting. But you know, Alex, you seem more focused lately, more confident. Whatever's happening in your personal life, it's working for you professionally, too. Alex didn't know how to respond to that. Was he more confident? He hadn't noticed any changes in himself, but maybe Tony was right. Maybe having Luna around had made him feel more settled, more like he belonged somewhere. Meanwhile, Luna was dealing with her own version of the same problem. Her best friend Casey had come over the previous weekend to help her look at apartment listings online. Casey had immediately noticed how comfortable Luna seemed in Alex's space, how she moved around the kitchen like she'd been there for years, how she talked about Alex's preferences when choosing what movie to watch. "You like him," Casey had said, not as a question but as a statement of obvious fact. "He's a good friend," Luna replied. The same defense Alex had been using at work. "He's letting me stay here when he didn't have to. Of course I'm grateful. Luna, I've known you for 5 years. I've seen you with roommates before. You never cook dinner for roommates. You never learn their work schedules so you can have coffee, ready when they get home. And you definitely never laugh the way you were laughing when you told me about the wardrobe mix-up." Casey had spent the rest of the weekend pointing out little things Luna did that suggested her feelings went beyond simple gratitude. The way she'd bought Alex's favorite brand of coffee without being asked. The way she'd rearranged her work schedule to be home when he was having a stressful week. The way her face lit up when she heard his key in the door. "I'm just being a good temporary roommate," Luna insisted. "Temporary roommates don't memorize each other's takeout orders," Casey said. "Temporary roommates don't have inside jokes about winking." The outside pressure was starting to get to both of them. Alex found himself second-guessing every interaction with Luna. When she made him coffee in the morning, was she just being nice, or did it mean something more? When they sat on the couch together watching movies, was the space between them feeling smaller, or was he imagining things? Luna was having similar thoughts. She caught herself paying more attention to what clothes she wore around the apartment, wondering if Alex noticed when she spent extra time on her hair. She'd started looking forward to their evening conversations more than she looked forward to finding her own place. The breaking point came when Alex's mom called for their weekly check-in. She'd been asking about his living situation, and Alex had mentioned that his roommate arrangement was working out well. But somehow, in trying to avoid getting into the complicated details, he'd made it sound like Luna was his girlfriend. "I'm so happy you found someone, honey," his mom said. "When do I get to meet her? Your father and I were thinking of visiting next month." Alex spent 20 minutes trying to explain the real situation without making it sound like he was hiding something or ashamed of Luna. But every explanation seemed to make his mom more convinced that he was in denial about his own feelings. "Sometimes these things happen naturally, Alex," his mom said. "You don't have to label everything right away. If she makes you happy and she's a good person, that's what matters." After he hung up, Alex sat on his couch staring at Luna's makeshift bedroom area. Her art supplies were scattered on the coffee table from a freelance project she'd been working on. Her favorite sweater was draped over the back of his chair. Her books were mixed in with his books on the shelf by the window. When had her temporary presence started feeling so permanent? When had he stopped thinking about the apartment as his space and started thinking about it as their space? Luna came home that evening to find Alex sitting in the same spot looking lost in thought. "Rough day?" she asked, the same question he'd asked her the night of the wardrobe incident. "My mom wants to meet you," Alex said without thinking. Luna froze in the process of hanging up her jacket. "Meet me?" "She thinks we're dating. Ryan thinks we're dating. Your friend Casey thinks we're dating. Everyone thinks we're dating, except us." Alex looked at Luna. really looked at her like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. Luna sat down on the opposite end of the couch, suddenly very aware of the space between them. Maybe everyone else is seeing something we're not ready to admit. They sat in silence for a while, both of them thinking about the same question. Had their friendship grown into something more without either of them noticing? And if it had, what were they supposed to do about it? Luna, Alex said finally, I think we need to talk about what's really happening here. I think you're right, Luna said, and for the first time since she'd walked into his apartment with that key, she looked genuinely nervous about what came next. The conversation they needed to have didn't happen that night. Luna said she needed time to think, and Alex agreed they shouldn't rush into anything just because other people had opinions about their relationship. They went to bed with more questions than answers, both of them lying awake wondering if everything was about to change. The next few days felt different. They were still friendly, still shared coffee in the mornings and dinner in the evenings, but there was a new awareness between them. Alex found himself noticing things he'd somehow missed before, like how Luna hummed while she worked on design projects, or how she always saved him the last slice of pizza without making a big deal about it. Luna was doing her own noticing. She realized Alex had started buying the expensive coffee she preferred instead of his usual cheap brand. He'd begun asking about her day with genuine interest, remembering details about her clients and projects. When she was stressed about work, he'd started suggesting her favorite takeout restaurants before she even mentioned being hungry. The breakthrough came when Luna finally found an apartment she could afford. It was a small studio across town. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. The landlord approved her application and she could move in at the end of the month. She should have been excited. This was what they'd both been working toward for weeks. Luna would have her own space again. Alex would have his apartment back and they could both return to their normal lives. But when she told Alex the news, neither of them seemed particularly happy about it. That's great, Alex said, and he meant it even though his voice sounded flat. You'll finally have your own place again. Yeah, Luna said, looking at the lease agreement she'd just signed. It'll be nice to have privacy again, and you'll get your living room back. They both knew they were saying the right things, but something felt wrong about the whole conversation. Luna had gotten what she'd been looking for, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure it was what she wanted anymore. Over the next week, Luna started packing her belongings slowly. She didn't have much stuff, but she found herself taking longer than necessary to fold her clothes and organize her art supplies. Alex helped when she asked, but he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. On Luna's last night, they ordered pizza from the same place where Alex had accidentally ordered 6 pizzas during the wardrobe incident. They ate sitting, on the floor of the living room, surrounded by Luna's packed boxes, trying to pretend everything was normal. I have something to confess, Luna said suddenly, setting down her slice of pizza and looking directly at Alex. Alex's heart started beating faster. What? That wink wasn't completely accidental. Luna took a deep breath. I mean, it was accidental. In the moment, but also, I don't know how to explain this. I was mortified about the clothes mix-up, but I was also something else. Something I couldn't name at the time. Alex set down his own pizza. What do you mean? I was attracted to you, Luna said, her cheeks turning red. I had been for a while, but I was trying to ignore it because our situation was already complicated enough. When I saw you standing there looking confused and surprised, part of me thought about how this was probably the most interesting thing that had happened to me in months. Not the embarrassing part, but the fact that I was sharing this weird moment with someone I was starting to care about. Alex stared at her. You've been thinking about this for weeks, haven't you? Luna asked. Alex, I've watched you become more confident and happy since I've been staying here. I've seen you laugh more, talk more, worry less about what other people think. And I know I've changed too. I look forward to coming home because you're here. I cook dinner because I want to take care of you. I stay up later than I should because I don't want our conversations to end. Alex felt like something had clicked into place in his mind. I have been thinking about it, I just didn't know if you felt the same way. Casey was right, Luna said with a small laugh. I do like you, more than like you, but I was scared to say anything because what if I was wrong? What if you were just being nice to someone in a difficult situation? What if admitting it ruined our friendship? Luna, Alex said, moving closer to her on the floor. I've been scared of the same thing. But I've also been thinking that losing you entirely feels worse than taking a chance on something that might be really good. They looked at each other for a long moment, both of them realizing they'd been dancing around the same feelings for weeks. The pizza was getting cold. Luna's boxes were packed and ready to move, but neither of them was thinking about any of that anymore. So what do we do now? Luna asked. Well, Alex said, reaching over to take her hand. Your lease on the studio doesn't start until Monday. That gives us the weekend to figure out if this is really what we both want. Luna squeezed his hand. And if it is, then maybe we can talk to Mrs. Kim about making this arrangement permanent, but different, not as temporary roommates who are just helping each other out, as people who chose to live together because we want to build something together. Luna smiled, the first genuine smile Alex had seen from her since she'd gotten the apartment approval. Are you asking me to stay? I'm asking if you want to try dating your roommate, Alex said, which is probably the most unconventional relationship origin story anyone's ever had, but it seems to be working for us. Luna leaned over and kissed him, soft and quick, like she was testing whether it felt as right as she'd imagined it would. It did. Yes, she said against his lips. I want to try. 3 months later, they were sitting in the same spot on the living room floor, but now it was their living room, officially and legally. Luna had broken her lease on the studio apartment, losing her security deposit but gaining something much more valuable. Mrs. Kim had been delighted to draw up a new lease with both their names on it, and she'd even reduced their rent slightly, because she said she preferred tenants who were clearly planning to stay long-term. Alex had helped Luna move her belongings back into the apartment, this time into the bedroom they now shared instead of the makeshift living room setup. They'd bought new furniture together, argued about paint colors, and settled into the kind of domestic routine that felt natural rather than forced. The wink had evolved too. It was still their signal for when one of them did something silly or awkward, but now it also meant, I'm thinking about you, and I'm glad we took a chance on this, and remember how this all started? Luna had framed the key she'd used to walk into Alex's life that first night. It hung by their front door with a small plaque Alex had made during a weekend trip to a craft fair. She entered without knocking. Underneath, Luna had added her own inscription in her elegant designer handwriting, and changed everything. Sometimes their friends asked how they knew their relationship was going to work out, given how unconventional it had started. Alex and Luna always looked at each other and smiled, sharing that inside joke that had become so much more than a joke. The truth was, they'd known it would work, because they'd already proven they could handle the unexpected together. They'd turned a housing crisis into a friendship, an embarrassing accident into a moment of connection, and outside pressure into an opportunity to be honest about their feelings. If they could navigate all of that and still make each other laugh, they figured they could handle whatever came next. And whenever life threw them another curveball, whenever they faced a situation that seemed impossible or awkward or completely unexpected, one of them would give the other a wink, and they'd remember that the best things in their lives had started with someone walking through the wrong door at exactly the right time.